Thanks for joining us. This is a journalistic, very informal group that's exploring practical spirituality based on the Bible and the principles of Christian Science. Rachel has prepared some short readings to share, and then we'll have lots of time for discussion, ask questions, and anything that's inspiring you around this topic or whatever's inspiring you this week. And with that, Rachel has prepared some readings on a government we can love.
Thanks, Joel. Before I jump in, my connection here isn't fantastic. So if I start cutting out, let me know and I'll turn my video off. Sometimes that helps, but I'll start with video on, see how it goes. As Joel mentioned, this is a totally informal discussion group. We are here to encourage participation and sharing. I'll share some readings, but then we'll open it up and explore a few questions that I've picked, but we can expand in any direction we all feel led to go. As Joel said, the title of today is A Government We Can Love. People all over the world are living under governments that they don't necessarily agree with or trust. We know everyone deserves to be governed with fairness and honesty, but that can feel out of reach when we see corruption and partisanship taking over. Could prayer help form a government we can love? Let's share our spiritual perspectives on government and explore practical ways to improve and uplift leadership around the world today. I'm actually going to shake things up a little bit, and I'm going to ask you all to think about the first question first before I read anything. So what does a government you can love look like? And I'm looking for just one or two word answers. Feel free to just shout them out when you think of them. Let's get some qualities out there.
How about equality?
God derived.
What was yours, Robin? I missed it.
Honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Fairness and loving, like equality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Balanced and cooperative.
Transparent.
One word I've been thinking about is impersonal.
Caring.
That's beautiful. Thank you, everyone. We'll circle back to that question. I'll throw out some readings now. I'll be reading from the King James Version unless I mention otherwise. This is from Psalms. Let the people praise thee, O God. Let all the people praise thee. Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for thou shalt judge the people righteously and govern the nations upon earth. And from 1 Kings in the New International Version. The Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon answered, "You have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart." From Isaiah, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. From Mark and Matthew in the New International Version. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating. Noticing that Jesus had given them a good answer, he asked him, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. "Teacher," they said, "we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax." They brought him a denarius, and he asked him, "Whose image is this, and whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then he said to them, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." Philippians and Romans. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. 1 Timothy, New International Version. We know that the law is good if one uses it properly. I urge then that petitions, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. And now I'll read from the writings of Mary Baker Eddy. All is under the control of the one mind, even God. Be firm in your understanding that the divine mind governs, and that in science, man reflects God's government. Man is properly self-governed only when he is guided rightly and governed by his Maker, divine truth and love. To coincide with God's government is the proper incentive to the action of all nations. The government of divine love is supreme. Love rules the universe, and its edict hath gone forth: Thou shalt have no other gods before me, and love thy neighbor as thyself. When the divine precepts are understood, they unfold the foundation of fellowship, in which one mind is not at war with another, but all have one spirit, God, one intelligent source, in accordance with the scriptural command, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." I'd love to open it up to the discussion again, and we can throw out a few more qualities that might have come out from those readings. What does a government you can love look like?
Wise.
Discerning the spirit.
It's interesting because a lot of times I've often thought when I think of government, I think of the governments that we see, the people, and I think I often start with the people and wonder or pray towards them finding the qualities that we're talking about that are, qualities of spirit, of God, and realizing that it makes a lot more sense to start with the qualities and to see them realized than starting with the people and trying to see it get there, I guess.
I just felt really inspired, Rachel, while you were reading those citations, and I was writing ideas that came to me. So I'm going to try to make sense of all this. The first thing I thought of was it's from Micah chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. In the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow into it, and many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And this is the part that made me think of this. And he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. There's a hunger. And then I thought of, Jesus said, Blessed are those that hunger and thirst after righteousness. There's a hunger and thirst in the hearts of mankind for God's law, for God's justice, for God's love, mercy, all those things. And it's not something we manufacture. It's something that God puts there. He puts it there. He nurtures it, and he brings it to fruition. And I think as you were reading, I just thought about, what government, I can't really put my faith wholly in any human government. I can't even I did not even do a perfect job of governing my kids when they were little, you know. So I've thought about this in relationship to where Paul says, put off the old man, be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and put on the new man, which is created in the image and likeness of God in true righteousness. And Paul is not saying that we should try to fix up the old man. We're not supposed to repair Adam. We're supposed to do away with Adam, the Adam definition of man. And I think sometimes, well, it's the same thing with the government. Jesus did not come to fix the Roman government. He didn't come to straighten that Roman government out. He didn't even try to straighten out. He rebuked it a few times, but he didn't try to fix the ecclesiastical government of the religious leaders of his day. His kingdom or his government was so completely different from all those worldly systems. And I think as much as we want to see those things reflected in our human governments, it's kind of like you were saying, Joel, we can't get the cart before the horse and try to fix those problems. We have to bear witness to what's God's true government is in the kingdom of heaven. And I think the disciples didn't even quite understand that. Even just before Jesus ascended, they asked him, this is in first chapter of Acts, he said, just paraphrasing this, will you restore at this time the kingdom to Israel? Like they were still wanting some earthly kingdom. That was still their vision. He said, no. It's not, you're not going to know how all that human stuff is going to work out, but you will be given power of the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, that is God's evidence of God's government. And I think, anyway, that I realize, just like if you're praying, about a problem you have or a situation or a sickness or something, we're not trying to fix a problem. We're trying to bear witness to the truth. And what I got out of all your readings, Rachel, was the phrase was in there several times, God's government. Well, that's the only real government. And I need to bear witness to that more. And I think the more we do see that, the more it will pop up, in our human experience. But racing around trying to, and if you're involved in trying to fix things and make the government better, hey, that's great. But I think we have to get the vision of what's true in the kingdom of heaven before we can try and bring it to earth. I hope that made sense.
That's going from sense to soul.
I think that's beautifully said. Thank you. And so, starting with that government we can love, who is, of course, God and God's government, how do those spiritual qualities that God expresses in us relate to the challenges in human government today?
I don't know if this answers that question, Rachel, but I was writing some notes down when James was talking. And when I think of God's government, I think of the 7 synonyms of God, and I think of principle. Principle is harmonious. God's government is harmonious. And I also think about the words our rights and responsibilities as an attribute of principle. So true government gives us rights and responsibilities. And, some of our rights would be, we are the image and likeness of God. We reflect goodness and our right to heal the sick and the sinning and to rebuke the idea of death, and responsibilities to see spiritually, right, and not materially. And again, responsible to heal the sick, the sinning, and the idea of death. So that might be simplifying the idea of government, but I like the idea of rights and responsibilities under God's government.
I like the idea of removing any sense of competition and replacing it with the idea of cooperation. Because really, if government is a good government, it's going to take everyone that it's governing into consideration. And there's no need for competition. You can have different ideas about things and come to a harmonious conclusion which benefits everybody.
When we hear people when we hear a lie, we know that we have to lift our thought above the lie to see God's good in the middle of the lie. And that, for me, is walking by faith and knowing that God is control. There is only one mind. And it's my job to see that clearly. Going back to talking about with Jesus when they thought he was going to fix their government, he taught them to keep their thought above the government to who they were spiritually. And that's by faith. And if we do this, it would help them. It would help everybody. And so that's what we're doing here today. Thank you.
One thing that comes to mind regarding human government was the word tolerance, which just means that people are accepting of other religions or beliefs or practices or whatever, that we don't have this us versus them or classism, whatever that looks like. But earlier I mentioned love, and really love is a much more wonderful expression than just tolerating something. It's actually embracing something. And all these ideas, from my perspective, start with each of us. And so for me, the way that I try to put that into practice is whenever I'm out and about, I'm always trying to see each person that I come across as my brother or my sister, that we have this sense of family. Even if it's someone I don't agree with, just to try to, and sometimes it's easier said than done. But a lot of times I just try to see that we're all just this one big expression of family. And I think for me, that's a really great place to start, because you get, those seeming false walls or barriers or classism, racism, sexism. It's all these isms, all these human interpretations of things. If you can just cut through it and just see that we're we're the children of divine love, just see that we have the same father, mother, irrespective of human opinion. For me, that's where it starts going out into a bigger sense of how that translates into a human sense of government.
Well, before we move into the last question, I'll read a few more citations. These are all from Mrs. Eddy's writings as well. Human law is right only as it patterns the divine. Consolation and peace are based on the enlightened sense of God's government. God is everywhere. No crown, nor scepter, nor rulers rampant can quench the vital heritage of freedom. Man's right to adopt a religion, to employ a physician, to live or to die according to the dictates of his own rational conscience and enlightened understanding. Christian scientists abide by the laws of God and the laws of the land, and following the command of the Master, they go into all the world, preaching the gospel and healing the sick. Mankind will be God-governed in proportion as God's government becomes apparent, the golden rule utilized, and the rights of man and the liberty of conscience held sacred. The right way wins the right of way, even the way of truth and love, whereby all our debts are paid, mankind blessed, and God glorified. So, how can our prayers support the individuals and systems required for lovable government?
One of the things that comes to me is there was a phrase you had in there, Mrs. Eddy's, that said, God's government will become apparent when we, or whatever, when it becomes apparent. I mean, we have to bear witness to it. And to do that takes humility and willingness to let go of our personal opinions about which side of some political divide that we get on, because when we're so invested in our own personal opinions, however right we may think we are, when we're opinionated about that, we can't hear God's voice. We can't necessarily see things from his perspective. We're looking at it just from our perspective, and you get that us and them attitude. So I would say the first step is really being willing to, well, Jesus said, if you want to be my disciple, just deny yourself, take up your cross daily and follow me. It doesn't mean saying you don't exist. It means denying your personal opinions or personal preferences. Jesus said, I don't say anything except what God tells me to. I only do what I see the Father doing. I didn't come to do my own will. I didn't come to teach my own doctrine. I didn't come for my own glory. I'm just here to do, I'm just a servant of what God is telling me to do. If we did that, things would be a lot different. I mean, we all do it to some degree, but if we did it more,
Oh, I wanted to add something. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I've been thinking about this for some time, and it seems that it's the belief of minds many, and it presents itself in all kinds of ways, but it's very obvious, finger pointing, name calling, and all of these funny things that get everyone going, but it's the belief of minds many. If I were going to treat this situation as treating a patient, I wouldn't try and heal the patient of something. my job is to see it as it really is and recognize that one mind. And what I'm doing is I'm straightening out my own thinking, keeping it where it needs to be, and just understanding that there is one mind, one government, and it is governing now in the place where there appears to be chaos and dissent. There's really nothing but the true government going on right now, and that's where I'm trying to keep my thinking.
Beautiful. Thank you, Christy.
I was thinking about, you read in the Bible, Rachel, and thank you for your readings there. They really, they hit home for what's going on in the world right now. You read, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. It made me think of the citation somewhere, and I'm not sure what it is exactly, about if we want to demonstrate divine science and Christian science, we have to follow the human laws first, you know, to be able to bear witness and to live righteousness, to be a healer. Does anybody know what citation that is that says we must follow the human laws to, you know, at least to accomplish God's?
Is that the one where it's about obeying the laws of the land?
Probably, yeah, that's it. Thank you. I think of that, you know, if we want to demonstrate a lovable government, we have to at least obey the laws of the land, right? At least, and then work spiritually, right? What we know spiritually. Made me think of that. Thanks everyone for your share so far.
I could add maybe something. My husband was on the city council in our small town in Michigan. And when he first, there was a group that got basically voted out, and it turned out that they were lying about a pretty big thing, like the yacht club owed $1 million on the water bill that they were trying to hide. The city council was trying to hide that this was happening and whatever. They just didn't want it out before the election. And I mean, we knew about it clandestinely. Anyway, bottom line is once he got in there, he was the one that was going to have to figure out what to do about it because he was in charge of the finances. And they had to go, and they all decided they went to a mediation place in the morning at like 7:30 in the morning or something. And I was just knowing the truth about it, knowing that whatever blesses one blesses all, so that everybody could come out of it in a clean way, and you know, not to try to make anybody look bad for having lied about it, basically, or and that it was fair for the yacht club and fair for the city. And so it went on, and he kept calling me like, I'm not going to be home for another hour or two at least, or another 2 hours. Anyways, it got to, so he'd been there from like 7:30 in the morning, and it got to be 7:30 at night. So they were there 12 hours. And he said to them, I'm not leaving here until we come up with a solution to this. So he called me and said, you know, I'm still in this situation. I said, well, let me just get to work another half hour on this. And just really, just truly knowing that whatever blesses one blesses all, and that there is only that the wise solution is coming from God, and that everybody was going to have to buy into it, and they can't choose not to buy into what God wants to happen. So anyway, so that's kind of what I was working with for that half hour. And then he called me back and said they came to a conclusion. Like, it could have happened all day long, but finally it did. And the interesting thing after that is everybody was happy about it. I mean, you never see that normally. You know, somebody's going to say, well, how did they get that? Or this shouldn't have happened, or what. I mean, and this was like, I want to say 10 years ago. No one has ever complained about it. It has never, no one's ever complained about it. Everybody's been always happy about it, you know, and it's basically done now. They've paid it and it's done. But so I mean, so it was truly a harmonious healing of thought and a good, wise solution that came out of that. And it was taken care of, and nobody lost face or anything. Like, it didn't have to be that. It could be, you know, there is only fairness in God's universe, and there's only harmony in God's universe. And anyway, so we can know that our whole government and all of our relationships can be that way. So, because that's basically what it really is. And I just always try to hold on to what Mrs. Eddy says, is whatever blesses one blesses all. So it ended up working out fine for everybody. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
You know, in my research for these, pulling together these citations, I ran across a few short letters from Mrs. Eddy that are collected in Miscellany, I think. And it's around the year 1905. And in the first letter, she's writing to all the members of the Mother Church and asking them to pray specifically for peace in the war between Russia and Japan. And then a couple weeks later, she sends a letter out saying, okay, you can all stop praying for peace between Russia and Japan, even though the war wasn't quite over yet. And what's meaningful to me is the third letter that comes out. Apparently there was a little bit of confusion, or, well, I don't know really what the response was, but this third letter says, it's like a clarifying letter. She writes, in no way nor manner did I request my church to cease praying for the peace of nations, but simply to pause in special prayer for peace. I cited as our present need faith in God's disposal of events. Faith, full-fledged, soaring to the Horeb height, brings blessings infinite. And the spirit of this orison is the fruit of rightness. On earth, peace, goodwill toward men. On this basis, the brotherhood of all peoples is established, namely one God, one mind, and love thy neighbor as thyself, the basis on which and by which the infinite God good, the Father, Mother love, is ours, and we are his in divine science. I love how this relates to a couple comments so far today about not outlining. And I think, Fran, your testimony is really a great example of that. You in no way outlined what the solution needed to be. And that left the door wide open for God's solution to be established. And I just love that faith in God's disposal of events that puts our whole human will, human opinion, human picture to the side and makes room for God's picture. I think that sums up what prayer for government can look like. This is also a wonderful time for any questions you might have about specific issues you're thinking about praying for, or other examples you have of praying in these directions. Even if they feel a little unrelated, they're always welcome in this discussion.
This is kind of unrelated, but I wanted to get a flower cart for our literature rack in front of the reading room. And I checked with the city, and the city said that there was laws that they could make people remove stuff off of the sidewalks as they wanted to, but there was stuff all over the sidewalks. They weren't enforcing it, but they could enforce it if they wanted to. Well, I didn't want to tell the board of directors that. Okay, I wanted that flower cart, and then it finally hit me. I had to tell them. I had to tell the truth. I couldn't disclose part of what I learned, and I finally got myself out of the way and told them what the laws were and that the city had the right to do. And we all agreed to get the flower cart for the reading room, and one of the other people built a box in it for a literature rack. And it's a real nice addition to the downtown area. But I'll never forget how hard it seemed to not to make a full disclosure. And I have to know that with our government, that's not a part of what they're going through, because they're in the kingdom of heaven just as we are. And just an important lesson. Thank you.
Well, I had a nice experience of God's disposal of events when we were leaving Nigeria. And it's very common in Africa that people in office expect money. They expect bribes. And we were at the check-in counter for the flight, and they said I couldn't leave the country because one of my vaccinations had expired. And I knew that he was just wanting bakshish. So I was quiet for a moment, and I said, you know as well as I do that the requirement for this particular vaccination is no longer law. It was repealed. Well, he still wanted money, and he said, well, we'll keep you here. And my husband wanted to pay, and I just motioned that he should put away his wallet. And I said to the man, looked him straight in the eyes, and I said, you know, all you are really wanting is bakshish, and I am not willing to pay it. And he went away, and about 10, 15 minutes later, he came back and said, okay, you can go through. And I hadn't paid. And I saw that as God's disposal of events, that we don't have to go along with corruption. We don't have to go along with customs or allow dishonesty. We can stand on principle and let God govern the situation.
There's another testimony like that in an article that I posted to the Facebook group by Bruce Fitzwater. I think it's titled Praying for Progress in Government. You can find that on the Facebook group later if you're interested.
That's what reminded me of my case. That was a very good article. I'm glad you posted it.
What was the name of it again?
Praying for Progress in Government. And it's an interview with Bruce Fitzwater. And the link I posted has both the audio and the transcript of it.
Thank you.
I was really struck in all these citations how much self-government came out. And when I think about praying for world governments, it can feel huge. But when I think about praying to simply be self-governed, well, it puts it entirely in my court. And I think, oh, this is a tiny example, but one example of that I feel really good about is it's whenever I get mostly parking tickets, the meter ran out or whatever, I have really prayed to overcome that feeling of frustration and imposition and replaced it with thinking about how the city I live in is a place I'm so grateful to be in and I love, and that ticket fine can simply be a donation to contribute more good to the good that I love in my city. And same, it happens once in a while on my college campus that I still visit. So it's just a donation to my alma mater, and just reframing these things can really change my whole experience of government in the little ways I have to interact with it. And the same goes for, the rare times I've had to receive a traffic ticket from a police officer or had to deal with someone in bureaucracy. Just stepping into that experience, ready to expect good and ready to acknowledge the good work that that individual is doing has completely changed my experience. And I can't say I'm changing government, but I can sure say I am self-governing differently because of that. So I'm really grateful for those moments.
Something just came to mind, the 10 Commandments. And of course, to abide by the 10 Commandments, to fulfill God's wishes and in harmony. But instead of thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not kill, I like to think of the 10 Commandments as basically no one can steal what is most dear to us and true, right? Spiritual reality. No one can steal from me what is truly valuable. Yeah, so I kind of like to switch each of the commandments to it's just not possible, right? I want to follow them, of course, but I like to think of them a little deeper as, we really can't harm each other in that way because God gives us everything of value. So just wanted to mention that popped in my mind, the 10 Commandments.
That's really powerful, Christy. There's a wonderful article by Jill Gooding on the 10 Commandments that really gets to that idea that you're sharing, that these are not just guidelines we choose to follow or not. No, these are laws that apply to everyone, everywhere, all the time, just like gravity. You can't escape gravity. Well, you cannot escape thou shalt not kill or thou shalt honor thy father and mother. These are laws that govern us, and that changes our concept of them. It sounds like a great follow-up discussion too, to focus more on God's laws. Maybe we can do that at a future time. I'll drop the link to that Jill Gooding article on the Facebook page too. You can find it there. One citation I think wraps this up beautifully is the sixth tenet. And we solemnly promise to watch and pray for that mind to be in us, which was also in Christ Jesus, to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, and to be merciful, just, and pure.
And we appreciate each of you being here today just to share some time. It's just a really informal get together we have each Tuesday. We'd love to see you if you're able to make it next week or any other subsequent weeks. And just, we'd love to hear any discussion topics if there's one that's helpful to you. As Rachel mentioned, there's a Facebook group, which you may or may not be familiar with, where you can just, post there a topic that might be helpful, or if you'd like to ask any additional questions that maybe come to you after the call, or any articles that you found helpful relating to this topic or just in general, it's a great place to share them. It's just a great community. And I posted in the chat a link to that group. And there's also a link if you'd like to make any small donations. We appreciate it. It just covers the cost of our Zoom account and our website. And then lastly, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you'd like to receive an invite for these discussions each week to your email, there's also a link for that. It just makes it automated so you never miss out. Yeah, and if you find these discussions helpful, we'd love it if you'd pass it along, share the invite that you received to somebody else, and we're all just here to learn and grow and spiritual understanding and development and this wonderful experience of life that is just a great opportunity for us to Jesus said work out our own salvation, but it's really just it's discovering more love, more community, more kindness, more truth, more of all those wonderful qualities. And it's great to get to experience that and share that with you. And thanks so much, Rachel, for sharing that. And just wanted to wish each of you a wonderful week.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Good night. Thank you.